Billionaire father sees black waiter let his disabled son lead a dance step, and then changes his life forever. In New York's most expensive restaurant, everything stopped. The music, the conversations, even the clinking of glasses, frozen in an instant. All because a 10-year-old boy, legs trapped in metal braces, stood up, trembling, and held out his hand. He wasn't reaching for his father, a billionaire who seemed to own the city. He was reaching for the restaurant's black waiter. What happened next stunned everyone. A single dance step, led by a child and accepted by a man the world ignored, would change not just one life, but many forever. Richard Montgomery lived above the world. A billionaire investor, known for cold decisions and untouchable wealth. But none of that power could fix the one thing that broke him, his son. 10-year-old Lucas had once been full of energy, always running, always laughing. But 2 years earlier, an accident had left his legs partially paralyzed. Metal braces clung to his thin frame, each step a reminder of what he had lost. Since then, Richard avoided taking him out. Tonight was their first dinner in a fine restaurant since the accident. He hoped for a quiet evening. He was wrong. The far end of the room stood James Carter, the restaurant's only black waiter. For 5 years, he had served wealthy guests who rarely looked him in the eye. Invisible to them, just a man carrying trays. But James had once been a promising student, a dancer, and a community leader before life pushed him into survival jobs. Fate had brought these three together. A billionaire desperate to control his world, a boy trapped between fear and courage, and a waiter underestimated by society, carrying the quiet strength to change everything. The piano began a soft, delicate melody. Lucas, braces clanging lightly, lifted his hand and extended it to James. Every eye turned. The manager shouted that this was inappropriate. Staff froze, patrons held their breath. But James didn't hesitate. He placed his hand in Lucas's and moved carefully, letting the boy take the lead. With each clumsy step, silence grew heavier, as if the room itself waited. For the first time since the accident, Lucas wasn't being guided. He was leading. Richard's chest tightened. Memories of his late wife dancing with Lucas in their living room resurfaced. Connection, not perfection. He watched in stunned awe as a black man followed his son's lead, quietly defying expectations. After the dance, James returned Lucas to his chair. Richard, usually decisive, felt something unfamiliar. Reflection. He reached into his jacket, pulled out a card. My office. Tomorrow at 10 a.m. James accepted it, hand trembling slightly. The next day, James walked into Montgomery Investments. Staff whispered. He was escorted to Richard's office, where documents lay detailing James's education, community programs, and the struggling Freedom Steps initiative he co-founded. Richard offered him a fortune to work privately with Lucas. 5 times his salary, but James shook his head. Dignity, autonomy, and purpose mattered more than money. This wasn't charity, it was justice. Richard felt frustration. His world rarely refused him. But here was a waiter standing firm. He realized that helping his son and others would require humility, trust, and letting someone else lead. Morning sunlight filled the community center. Lucas, clinging to his braces, stepped inside with his father. Children with wheelchairs, crutches, and prosthetics moved freely to the beat. To Richard, it looked chaotic. To James, it was beauty and progress. Lucas watched, then followed James, choosing his own pace. Suddenly, the press arrived. Camera flashes lit the room. Questions hung in the air. None mattered. All eyes were on Lucas. Then, it happened. Lucas removed a brace and took a full step on his own. Shaky, unsteady, but entirely his. Children cheered. James smiled calmly, Even reporters paused in awe. Richard's chest tightened. Control had never felt so meaningless. Richard faced a choice: protect pride or embrace humility. Every lesson, every dollar, every expectation paled against the raw joy of that step. For the first time, he wasn't controlling the story. He was witnessing transformation, led by courage, dignity, and trust. Months passed. Freedom Steps thrived. Funded fully by the Montgomery Foundation, James retained full control, shaping programs and guiding children like Lucas. No corporate interference, no shortcuts, just respect and purpose. Lucas returned regularly, moving with confidence, leading small routines and teaching others. Richard watched quietly, learning to follow rather than control. The grand opening of the new Freedom Steps Rehabilitation Center was a celebration of courage, dignity, and perseverance. Children moved freely, parents cheered, and Richard felt a pride that money could never buy. Lucas, wearing only a light brace, led a choreographed routine. Reporters captured every moment, telling the story of a billionaire father who had learned the hardest lesson of all. Leadership is not about power. It's about knowing when to follow. James stood quietly, proud, refusing the lucrative offer. Had changed lives, not just Lucas's or Richard's, but countless others. The program expanded, inspiring a new way of thinking about rehabilitation, empowerment, and respect. Richard approached James. "Thank you," he said softly, "for teaching me to follow." James smiled, knowing the lesson went far beyond dance or wealth. It was about trust, humanity, and courage. In a world where privilege often blinds people to what matters, this story reminds us: true change doesn't start with power. It starts with dignity, respect, and the courage to take the first step. And so the question remains for every viewer: what would happen if we too chose to follow when someone shows us a better way? If you've ever experienced or witnessed something inspiring or unexpected like this, share your story in the comments. I might even make a video about it to raise awareness and justice. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video so together we can spread the message further.